Hello and welcome back to a new video. This time we're going to take a look at the brand new model to the Death Guard army, the Lord of Poxes. If we take a look here at the Lord of Poxes datasheet, he is a movement 5, toughness 6 and 3 up save model like the rest of the Plague Marine characters. He is leadership 6 and OC 1, however the difference here he does have 5 wounds, and one of the main factors of him is he is a Chaos Lord equivalent. He does have the 4 invulnerable save. Taking a look at his weapons, we have the plasma pistol, which isn't anything to write home about. It's the same thing with the supercharged and non-supercharged at one shot. It is pistol, so it can be shown in combat. The bonus to this would be if you do join a Plague Marine unit, it's an extra shot that can potentially proc the ability of the. For his melee, we do have the Great Plague Blade, which is 6 attacks, hitting on 2, so there is some good consistency there. Strength 8, -2, 2 damage. The abilities of them are, like everything we have, is a lethal hits, but he is one of our few models that does have the devastating wounds ability. This can be pretty good for just getting some extra things on a tough target, but other than that, it's just a more consistent power fist. Moving on to his abilities, we can see he has the Gift of Poxes, which adds 3 inch to the range of this model's Contagion range. So this is the specific Lord of Poxes model, which is useful. In turn 2, it means that that model has a 9-inch Contagion range, which can be really good for in the movement phase, tag something a little deeper into the enemy's army, and allowing for the Death Shroud's afflicted 6-inch drop. He also has the Shroud of Disease, which says while this model is leading a unit, and remember he can only lead Plague Marines, that unit cannot be targeted by ranged attacks unless the attacking model is within 18 inch. So it's an 18-inch lone up. This is kind of tricky to get use out of, although this video we will run through some tips and tricks later how to maximize this. Looking at the enhancement that can go onto this model, in the Champions of Contagion detachment, there's the Cornucophagus, which can only go on the Lord of Poxes. In the declare battle formation step, select one plague until the end of the battle while an enemy unit is within contagion range of the bearer. That enemy unit has the effect of that plague in addition to any other. So it gives the Lord of Poxes one of the 3 plagues that's always on from his contagion, and the added little bonus is that it does have good synergy with the added 3-inch to that model's range. Taking a look at the other detachments, the Virulent Vectorium have 4 applicable enhancements which can go on the Lord of Poxes. Most of the time, you would be taking these on the Lord of Contagion to buff up the melee power of that unit, but they are applicable to the Lord of Poxes, as well as the Taliban Summoners having the +2 attack enhancement. When it comes to the Lord of Poxes then, how do we utilize him on the battlefield? His ability to get the 18-inch lone up only triggers if he is with a Plague Marine unit, so I have been running him with a 5-man melee unit. So here we can see we have the Lord of Poxes, we have the champion with the Power Fist and a plasma gun, we have 2 heavy plague weapons because you can have 2 heavy plague weapons per 5-man. We have 1 bubotic just to give us that extra bit of bite, and then we have at the back a plasma gun Plague Marine. This means that we can always be overcharging the 5 shots if we're in rapid fire range of the plasma gun, and he can be the casualty if we do that. It also allows us to take advantage of the Plague Marine rule, which we'll just have a quick look at now, which is in your shooting phase, each time a unit is selected to shoot after this unit has shot, select one enemy unit to be hit by one or more of these attacks. Until the start of the next turn, that unit is afflicted. So having a small 5-man unit of Plague Marines does allow us to spread the plague a little bit deeper, and at 24-inch we have 2 shots with 2 plasma guns, which is a bit more consistent hitting on 3s. In 12-inch range we will have the 5 shots, and the Lord of Poxes does hit on 2s, so we should be guaranteeing that we hit at least something to afflict it. A quick note here that the shooting ability of the Plague Marines does not trigger the Cornucophagus additional plague. That is only from the contagion range of the Lord of Poxes specifically. Moving to the tabletop, we have the Lord of Poxes unit here on the center objective, and we have an 18-inch bubble from the Lord of Poxes model. It is the whole unit where the bubble will be emanating from, but this is just an easy way to see that if the unit here is on the mid objective, pretty much anything in the game is going to be able to get a movement phase to be within the 18 inches required to ignore the loan up rule, and it's going to be able to shoot this unit to most likely remove it from the board. So what we want to be doing with the Lord of Poxes unit is playing the flanks. As we can see, if we are playing the flanks, this bubble is impacting much less of the tabletop, and anything over the other side on the other objective, or even the enemy's home, has a lot more difficult of a time targeting this unit, because they would have to really commit something across the board or into the middle to be able to see this unit, and that means that they're exposing things that they normally wouldn't be exposing, because they would have been able to shoot it from the deployment zone or at the top here. Because of this 18 inch, you are actually utilizing the ability. One of the ways that we can really utilize the 18 inch ability, and by playing the flanks, is by using rapid ingress. So in this situation, the opponent has disembarked their Rhino with their Plague Marines, and they've come out into the center. They want to shoot something, example here, or charge or anything, whatever it is. They've got their heavy blight launchers that come out that have all got range to cover a large part of the board, so they've covered everything pretty nicely. However, because we have the 18 inch loan up ability, we can check, we can say, hold on a second, I might be doing a rapid ingress here. So if we have 9 inches from these poxwalkers, we can set up the Lord of Poxes unit here, and we can see that 18 inches from this Lord of Poxes means that we aren't able to be shot by the Plague Marines. The heavy blight launcher here does have line of sight, or we can even say it will have line of sight, but because of the 18 inches, it's not in range. And the same thing here is true, which means that we have a really strong rapid ingress unit that is able to come on this side, or potentially up here as well. And that means that in our next turn, we know that this unit is going to still be alive, and we can threaten their natural expansion with a 5 inch move, have the 4 inch charge, which we make on a 7, and then we have killed this unit, and we can still utilize the 18 inch loan up ability, so that anything at the top of the board is kind of irrelevant for this unit, and anything over here would have to come down and commit to it and get closer to us, which is obviously Death Guard really like when the opponent is up and close to us. So one thing we can use the Lord of Poxes for is for sniping out characters from units that don't have an invuln. Most of the characters that can join a Plague Marine unit are a bit lackluster in melee. The Biologist Playcaster is a bit of a better profile, but he only has 4 attacks, so it's a bit inconsistent. The Lord of Poxes, with his 6 attacks hitting on 2s, is pretty consistent, and the Dev Wounds can be really nice. So if we make the charge here with the Plague Marine unit and we use the Epic Challenge stratagem, we can roll 6 attacks, drop 1, and 1 is lethal, fairly consistent. And then here we actually need 3s because of the toughness being 6, but against most things it would be 2s. So we have 2 devs here, so this immediately kills one of the characters because they have 4 wounds, and then they have 3 saves at 6 ups. So here we go, we've killed both of the characters for the Plague Marine unit, severely reducing the output of this unit, and we have the rest of the attacks still going in from the Plague Champion and the rest of the melee weapons. So Epic Challenge is pretty good into certain targets with a Lord of Poxes. In terms of double attaching the Lord of Poxes with one of the Virions, obviously you can't attach the Plaguecaster because he is a character. In a 5-man, I wouldn't bother with the Biologist Putrefier for a double attach. It can be useful, specifically in the Champions of Contagion, to proc the final ingredient if we did this move with the rapid ingress and they were using a character to block it off, or indeed up at the top. If we rapid ingress and then have the Biologist Putrefier with the final ingredient, the Lord of Poxes is, as we mentioned, with the Epic Challenge, a really good target for doing that. So you could include the Biologist Putrefier in this 5-man. It's just quite a lot of points. But again, it's a nice skirmishing unit to be playing the flanks. So that's an option. The Foul Blight Spawn is okay. It gives you the Flamer power, but again, this is kind of a melee skirmishing unit, or at least the way that I've been playing it on the flanks. So the fights first can be useful. However, if you are double attaching in the Champions of Contagion detachment, then you have access to the 1 CP fights first, so it's probably not worth the 60-point investment. Icon Bearer does have a kind of a niche ability now, where at the start of any phase, you can say that a unit that is battle shocked isn't. There's quite a few things at the moment that battle shocks a unit if they're still on an objective or at the end the charge phase or something like that. So that could be good for wiping that out, but I think it's too niche to really justify the points investment. One of the characters I am thinking about putting in here, which might seem a little strange, but it does sort of shore up this charge and give you an even more an annoyance, is if you have the Noxious Blightbringer in the unit. The unit gets +1 movement, so that 4-inch charge after the movement becomes a 3-inch charge, just to sort of minimize that risk. And you get reroll charges, which is good. But also it has the ability of, if the enemy model within 9 inches of him is under starting strength, they have to take a battle shock test at -1. And if in the Cornucophagus, or even just the Champions of Contagion detachment rule, you decide to take the -1 leadership, that is a battle shock test at -2, which can be quite impactful, especially in the mid game, where they'll be looking to do actions or score things like that, or take an objective off you. If you can battle shock them, then this unit becomes even more of an annoyance. So the Noxious Blightbringer, I think, is actually a choice in the Champions of Contagion detachment with this sort of skirmishing unit. It is bumping up points, so we've got 90 points here for the Plague Marines, and the Lord of Poxes with the enhancement is 110. So this is a 200-point unit, so adding another potential 40, 45, even 60 points into this, it makes it quite a points investment. But I say it's something that your army isn't particularly doing any other way, and the rapid ingress in a safe location is quite a strong way of playing the flanks. Another option would be to attach the Talisman into this unit as well. He now has the ability to ignore modifiers to hit in the ballistic skill or weapon skill, so making sure that this unit still hits on 2s, 3s, and 4s instead of 3s, 4s, and 5s is quite helpful, depending on the matchup. So it could be a nice little flex thing to do to make sure that if you're going into the unit, you are going to kill them. The only problem is if this unit is playing the rapid ingress, if you go first, this unit will miss out on 2 rolls of the Sevenfold's Chant. So it's not the worst thing in the world, but it is something that you are most likely taking the Talisman for to try and show up CP. So it's just a slight downside if you do that. And finally, we're going to use the Lord of Poxes and Plague Marines as a goddamn missile. 6 bodies here, can go in the Land Raider, and it's also got space for the 4 Terminator bodies because this counts as 8 and there's a capacity of 14. So all of these guys can go inside the Land Raider. I wouldn't advise this against a strong gun line, but you could deploy extremely aggressively on certain map types where you're going to be able to get this charge off. So if this guy just rocks up his 10, and then these guys can get out this side, all happy, and these guys can get out here, all happy with a load of Poxes, you can potentially cause some massive disruptions against the opponent going first, and these guys have a 7-inch charge. To be fair, it could probably be a little bit further forward. A 6-inch charge there, and these guys have a similar charge here if we place them properly. 3 inches there, so a 7-inch charge there. So first turn, Typhus's unit, of course, they don't get in. You can CP reroll because it's the first turn. Hopefully, Teleman's been nice to you. The Lord of Pots as well, because Lord of Pots' unit gets a nice big 10. So then these guys all move up here, base here, and potentially do some shenanigans with basing and end up on the opponent's deployment objective turn 1, which is always fun, especially if the Lord of Poxes has maybe the -1 move, leadership, and OC contagion, or if they have the -1 to hit, you potentially tagged a lot of things with -1 to hit, which means they'll either have to shoot the Lord of Poxes unit in combat and engagement, where you have all the abilities of the Champions of Contagion. There'll be -1 to hit because the unit's in engagement, or you could potentially just be spreading -1 to hit. And remember, turn 1, the Lord of Poxes is actually a 6-inch aura because of his +3. So the Cornucophagus with a -1 to hit can be really impactful if you're using this Lord of Poxes as a missile to really disrupt the opponent's turn 1. So to summarize, I think the Lord of Poxes is a great addition to the army. It gives us something that we didn't quite have, and under the right circumstances, I think he can be very powerful. Playing the flanks with him really allows the 18-inch loan up to matter. If you're just using him in the middle of the board, it's a non-rule. But utilizing abilities and stratagems such as rapid ingress can really cut down on the opponent's ability to restrict you, because you can still move far enough away that the 18-inch loan up will stop the unit from being able to be shot, but still be in a threatening position for your turn next turn, which is fantastic. In the Champions of Contagion specifically, with the Cornucophagus and the ability to switch and choose your chosen plague with the detachment rule, he can become a real nuisance because he can always have 2 plagues up, -1 to hit, or the -1 OC move and leadership. And if you manage to proc the final ingredient, you could potentially have all 3 plagues up with his contagion range, which by the time it gets to turn 3 will be a 12-inch. So yeah, if there's any other ways that people have been using this model, any powerful combinations that they've found that I've missed, please do comment on the video below to let me know, and I can see if we can add them in later on in another video recap. But yeah, try this out. I think he is a very powerful model if used in the right way. And finally, I just want to say a huge thank you to all the viewers and all the people who've liked, commented, and subscribed. We're almost at 100 subscribers now for the channel, which is pretty crazy. But if you'd like to see any more units or any more tips and tricks videos, please let me know what you'd like to see, and I can try and get to that soon. But yeah, thanks everybody. See you soon.